If you forgive me for my bluntness, my lord, the truth of the matter is that I need to marry. My father's death has left me wealthy and, unfortunately, more of a target for the fortune hunters of the ton than I would have liked. He didn't miss the tinge of desperation in her voice. As long as he'd known her, she'd always shied from the public eye, and the burden of being an heiress must have been a great one. "And what has this to do with me?" Cedric asked. Surely she didn't think. It was too much to hope that she would ask him to court her again. "I need a husband, and most of the eligible men seeking a bride are not what I would ever consider to be suitable matches. I came here, hoping that perhaps—" Her hands grasped his, and the action startled him, but he kept calm and gently held on to her. What did she hope? His chest tightened. "Speak your mind, Miss Chessley," Cedric demanded, perhaps a little too strongly. Her grasp on his hands loosened, and his hands dropped into his lap. "Perhaps this was a mistake. I shouldn't have bothered you," Anne muttered apologetically. He heard her rise to leave. Cedric stood with her and reached blindly in her direction, hoping to catch her wrist to halt her. Instead, his hand curled around the flare of a womanly full hip. Rather than release her, he dug his fingers in, just hard enough to halt her escape. A startled gasp came from the sudden contact. "Tell me what you came to say. Please," he half pleaded, not wanting her to go. He'd spent so much time alone of late, which he'd thought he preferred, given his condition, but Anne's company was welcome. It reminded him of better times, yet it left no sting of his lost sight. Rather, it lit a fire in his blood, reminding him of the way he used to tease her, and how she'd resisted him with her delightful verbal sparring. He restrained himself from a grin when she did not try to escape his hold. "I came to ask you if you would consider marriage to me." The last two words were a breathless whisper so faint he wondered if he'd imagined them. "You want to marry me?" He could have Anne at last. Yet he'd sworn to himself that marriage wasn't possible, that any woman who tied herself to him would never be happy with a damaged shell of a man. How could Anne think he would be a good choice? If she thought she could be his wife in name only, she was mistaken. If he and Anne married, he would get her beneath him in a bed and find the heaven he knew awaited him there. If marriage was the only avenue in which he could find paradise, then he would have the banns read immediately. Still, if he knew Anne, which he did, there had to be a catch. "Yes, well, want is perhaps a strong word, but I would marry you if you asked me." "Why me?" If she had her pick of fortune hunters and other young bucks, why would she settle for a blind, pathetic fool? It made little sense.